Hello Stampers, my name is Linda Bedinger and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and today I'd like to show you how I made this card. I was inspired by a photograph that I'd seen of a dusky scene on the ocean where the waves were coming in and it was kind of dark and stormy looking, and the colors that were in the water were just amazing. They were the gray and kind of a blue-green and almost a purple, and it made me think of this bokeh technique that I learned, and I thought it would be kind of fun to put it on a panel and then put a silhouette kind of stamp over the top of it. And I'd had a recent request from one of my people that attended my class last month for a sympathy card, and I thought this would make a great sympathy card, or it could be anything. It could be happy birthday or anything else, but I love this little dreamy, foggy looking color technique here. So I'm going to go ahead and put this together, and the stamp sets that I'm using today is I'm using the Touches of Texture, and I'm using this little floral spray from that. That's a 2-box set. It's wonderful. It's got wonderful backgrounds. And then I'm using Wetlands, and I'm using the Thinking of You sentiment from there. And this card is very simple. What we need is a card base, and I use Smokey Slate. This measures 5.5 by 8.5, and it's been scored at 4 1/4. And we'll just go ahead while I'm at it and burnish that fold. And then we need a piece of Whisper White that measures 3 3/4 by 5 1/4. Then I'll need a piece of Wisteria Wonder that measures 1 inch by 5 1/2. And we can go ahead and adhere the Wisteria Wonder to our card base straight away. I'm going to use a little Tombow. And where I'm going to put this is just along the edge of my card to pick up a little of that pretty lavender color. And so I'm going to put it so just a small edge of the card itself shows for the gray, and then the Wisteria Wonder there, and then we'll put the piece that we're going to work on top of that. All right, so the work that we're going to do for the most part is going to be on this piece of Whisper White. And to do that bokeh technique, I'm using three basic inks. I'm using Bermuda Bay, I'm using Wisteria Wonder, and I'm using Smokey Slate. And then I'll show you also how to put the little white pieces, the accents on there. And I'm going to work on my piercing mat here. Since I've gotten used to using the piercing mat with the photopolymer stamps, I find that I really like just working on it. And so here's my piece of Whisper White. And what I'm going to do is take 2 pieces of scratch paper. I put one underneath the piece, and then I've got 2 that just measure just ever so slightly larger than the card piece itself, and I'm going to mask off this area here that I want to remain white. And I have found that if I line up my card using this line of my grid paper, scratch paper here, I'm going to count in 3 squares from the left here and put a little mark, and I'm going to count 5 squares in from here and put a little mark. Same thing on the top, in 3 squares a mark, in 5 squares and a mark. And so what I'm going to do is add a little bit of repositioning tape to the very edge of this piece of scratch paper, and I am going to line my card back up here with the edge of that dark line on there, and then I'm going to set my scratch paper here to line up in 3 squares at the top and in 3 squares at the bottom. And that way I'm assured that this mask line is going to be straight. And so there we have that. I'm just going to take off the excess glue with my glue eraser there. Now I'm going to need another piece of scratch paper, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to put a little of the removable adhesive along one edge here, and then I'm going to put that down. Let me put this one back on its mark so I know right where I am, and I know that's straight. And then I'm going to add this piece at the places that I've marked in 5 squares. Once again, so that I can be assured that my mask line is absolutely straight. And there we go. Use my glue eraser to get rid of those little pieces. So there we have, it's masked off, and what we're going to be working on is just this little panel right here in the middle. So to get the bokeh technique, what you need to do is use, at least for me, what I did, and I learned my technique by watching a wonderful Stampin' Up! Demonstrator by the name of Bobby Couch. Bobby has a great, she made a beautiful dandelion card that she used the bokeh technique on, and I've done a couple of variations of that one since then, and I thought it would work on this one. So I'm going to start with the Smokey Slate, and I'm going to grab my Smokey Slate sponge here, and I'm going to lay down some of that gray right down here along the bottom of this card. Now I don't want it too dark, and in fact I'm going to leave it light on the edge so I can blend another color in there. Then I'm going to put a piece that kind of runs across the center of this card, or this panel. And don't worry if you get a spot or two that feels like it's a little heavy, because with the next piece of this technique you can take care of any areas like that. Okay, and then I'm going to lay my next bit of gray right down here towards the top of the card. And there, I think that's enough of the Smokey Slate. So I'm going to move that aside, and I'm going to move in my Wisteria Wonder. Take my sponge for my Wisteria Wonder, and I am going to put a stripe of that Wisteria Wonder just right across this spot in here. Then I'm going to put a section of it right in through here. And it's fine to be blending it in with the other colors, because I think that's part of what makes this so pretty. So I'm going to blend a little bit of this wisteria up into that gray at the top there. All right, so next I'm going to work with the Bermuda Bay, and grab my sponge for the Bermuda Bay, and I'm going to fill in the spots here with this very pretty Bermuda Bay. I think it just looks so pretty with these other colors in there. I'm going to put a little bit of a wash down here in the corner. Okay, I think we're there. All right, so I'm going to now set aside that Bermuda Bay. The next thing I did was I made a template using punches and dies, and cut out this little template for using for the bokeh technique, and you can tell it's very well loved and very, very well worn. And what I'm going to use is our Stampin' Up! Whisper White craft ink. And with the craft ink, what I'm going to do, let's say we have a place here, for instance, right in here, where the color is maybe a little bit darker than I want, then I might take one of these circles and lay that right over the top of that area and just dust it lightly in the white. And see what happens? It just kind of picks that up. And then this white has a tendency to dry a little lighter. It fades a little bit. And so it can be just really very pretty. So I'm going to have some of your circles going off of the page. I think that that's fine. And some circles might be pretty white, and others of them might be just very slight, just a hint of a circle. And I think in here I'm going to put one. Isn't that pretty? I just love the look this gives your card, the background. That one looks like it needs a little bit more on this side. There you go. All right, I'm going to take another big one sort of off the corner here. And maybe a whole little one right down in here. I think that's just fine. All right, so I'm going to put away the white craft ink now and put away my template. And so the next thing I'm going to do is very gingerly peel off my masking paper here. You don't want to yank because the temporary tape works pretty well, but every once in a while you'll pull one off and it kind of pulls on your paper. And so if you go slow, you have a much better chance of being successful. And there we go. Isn't that pretty? So we've got this bokeh technique in these three colors set down here on our card. And so next we're going to add the flower motif here. And I've mounted my stamp here, and that on that piece I'm going to use the Archival black ink. And this stem on this flower isn't very long. So what I've found is that I need to stamp this first one so that the flower itself is on both parts here and the stems are off the page. The stems feel to me to be a little distracting. So there we go with our first one. Then I found that if I take this all the way off the end here and just get one impression in the corner, and then the one on this side, again, stems off the page, and get it down there. The next one is the tricky one. And taking some of that scratch paper that I just used, what I want to do is mask it so that the impression that gets put on the card starts with that section of the stamp. Because I think it's distracting to have stems kind of right in the middle. So I'm going to excuse my head if it gets in the way here, but I'm going to try and get this so that none of the stems are on, but the flower extends down the page. And there, I think I've done it. Okay, now to add to the realism here, I did find that I had to take my marker, the pointed end of my marker, and I extended the stems into the other flower. So, and anything that was a partial image I drew back in. So that was a leaf, and this one looks like it should have been a leaf on this side. So I will just finish those two pieces, and there I have, I can't tell you how many times I stamped that to finally get that effect, and I like this better than the original because it covers that whole upper part of the card. Okay, so the trick is stems off the page, off the page, off the page, and here to mask the stem so that you mostly get the flower, and then draw your pieces in. So I think that came out just fine. Now the next piece I'm going to do is add my sentiment, my thinking of you, again in the Archival ink. And in this one I had it running on both sides, and for this one I'm going to try and get it all on the interior of the panel here. There, I think that looks very pretty. Okay, all right, so that's it on the, no, it's not quite, but I'll put that aside for now. Okay, so now what I did find was I found this little silver marker, and I just added a little flower center to the center of the little 4-petal flowers there, and see how it gives a little sparkle. I don't know if you can see that on camera or not, but in real life it shows up, and it just adds a touch of sparkle to the front of this card. And then I will add a couple of rhinestones to this, but I just love the way that the flowers kind of jumped out a little bit more if it had this silver in the center of the flowers. So I added that, and then the next piece is to add a few rhinestones. And so let's see what happened to my, I can't get it out of my head. One of the people in my class calls this the pokey tool, and half the time I can't remember that it is a piercing tool. It's called a pokey tool. So I'm going to put one rhinestone here, and I think the eye seems to like odd numbers, so I'm going to add 3. I'm going to put one right there on the edge, and then one last one kind of up near the top of the card. Right in there. There, I think that's very pretty. Simple, but pretty big impact, I think. Okay, so that is the front of the card done. And we're ready to put the rest of the card together. So I'll move this out of the way and bring back our card base here. And this piece I'm going to push up on dimensionals. And let me grab some dimensionals here. And so I'm going to put dimensionals. I've changed a few things since I did the first card. I've put the flowers more in the corner. This I laid flat, and I think I like it better up a little bit. And I moved my sentiment. So it's just like anything else you do. You make improvements as you go. And in the center here, I'm just going to use a couple of the bones here at the bottom of my dimensionals and put 2 in the middle. Okay, then we're going to mount this card and put a little something on the front of it, on the inside, and that'll be the project for today. So now I'm going to set this so that I have a little bit of an edge on this edge of the card. It's a little low. It's a little offset from the right, but that's what I wanted. There we go. So there we have it, so that the purple edge showed on this end, and I've got a little smudge there. And if you watched my videos, you know I have a solution. I use these little sanding blocks that your nail tech uses, and just sand off a little bit of a smudge there, and there it's gone. So there's the card for today, and actually when I look at the 2 of these, I really do like the second one a little bit better than the first. And I think it's lovely, and I think it could be, you could make this a happy birthday card, you could do a number of things with it, and I'm pretty pleased with it. So that's our project for today, and again, all of the materials that I used in making my card today can be purchased on my 24/7 shop, lbedinger.stampinup.net. And if you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I'd love to be your demonstrator, and or you could join my team. So I'll be back soon. Let me know what you think with a comment or a thumbs up on the video, and subscribe to my channel, and you'll be notified when I come back with another 3D project or another card. And until then, bye!